Thank you, Jen. And on that note, I just started recording this. So
I
yeah,
almost said something and I was like, nope, he told me he would do
I just get carried
it.
away, and then I forget to push the record button. So thank you.
All
Yeah.
good.
So really briefly, I want to go over one. What I'm really excited about, you guys, is that we can talk about eyes a lot, and not just kind of like split our time between eyes and nose and mouth. Anatomy is very important when we paint or draw the figure. And the more we know about anatomy, the more we'll be able to bring awareness to things in our sketch or painting that we may not be aware of. So as we've discovered before when we did mouths, we learned a couple of new words that are really exciting. I had no idea about, but I want to share them with you. And that's the best part about these painting webinars, is the fact that we're learning more than if we were together outside, I guess. So simple diagram or image of a very basic anatomical, and by the way, the best way to find the diagrams or maps about anatomical stuff is through plastic surgeons' websites. So I just kind of like love doing that. So pupil and iris, I talk about the difference between those two, and we'll probably talk about those because I'm really excited that we're gonna have more time to paint that grouped area. Difference between pupil and iris we'll go over later, but the eyelid, they just pointed at one. There's the upper eyelid and the bottom, the lower eyelid. And then the sclera, we always say the white of the eye, and the white of the eye this, and we make it too big and we make it too white. And I'm gonna bring up a lot of things about that part, but it's not specifically the white of the eye, it's the sclera. And I love to learn new words. So yeah, I love words. Someone else said that. I'm not gonna say who. I really love words. And I'm gonna try to incorporate them in my vocabulary. So yeah, the second diagram, this is, I just went from 1 to 100, obviously, but this is much more complex. But I love this. It's a mixture of anatomical areas or features and also distance between them. I'm not gonna go over everything, but I love this specific term, interpupillary distance, the distance between the pupils. This one, intercanthal distance. I'm not gonna add this word to my vocabulary yet because it's a little bit complicated, but that's something important we're gonna talk about because we make the eyes sometime too close together. So the distance between the eyes is something that's really important. And I just wanted to also bring, well, yeah, I just, from an eyebrow specialist. This is just an example of how to find alignments. I'm not saying that this applies to every single face, and we have to be very careful when we look at anatomy books or art books that have anatomy in them, because the trick is that that only applies to that face that's on the book. It doesn't apply to every single face. So I don't recommend to memorize anything in any art book that has to do with formulas about proportions. But at the same time, it's not a bad idea to find certain common alignments. Like, for example, I love the alignment of the nostril and the tear duct, which we're not gonna have here because our faces are covered. But then this one, the tail of the eyebrow and the corner of the eye, I think this is really nice. So something that we're gonna look into. And then in regards of the eyebrows, we always talk about eyebrows. This is a very important part of our face. And I just love these three words: the head of the eyebrow, the arch of the eyebrow, and the tail of the eyebrow. If we don't articulate the different parts of an eyebrow, when we make or we paint or we draw an eyebrow, we're not gonna distinct or make distinctions between those three parts. And we're gonna end up doing something very Egyptian-like or with the same quality. And eyebrows do not have the same quality throughout, and they don't have the same arched shape throughout. So I found this really helpful for me personally, because I'm gonna be able to say, where's your arch? What does it look like? Have you checked the beginning of the eyebrow, the head of the eyebrow in comparison with the tear duct? Where is the tail of the eyebrow and how far or diagonally it goes from the corner of the eye? So all those things will be in play when we start sketching. And finally, I mean, this is super complicated. I'm not going to go through every word, but there's one single word that I really like, glabella, glabella. It's just really fascinating, and I'm going to try to memorize it. Glabella, it's the word, the anatomical part that describes the flat area between the eyebrows. I use a different term. I always say the keystone. The keystone is an art-related term, but the keystone basically covers a very specific part that's called glabella. We go over these words because when we did the mouths, we discovered so many new words like the philtrum or the nasolabial line and stuff like that. So I'm just a nerd for that kind of stuff. Yay! Yeah, I like your hand, Dina. All right, so going back to this, I'm just gonna start right now. And sorry about my head, but yeah, so here we go. The first thing I would say, I'm not gonna go into the eye line first. I just cropped my image with the same proportions as the paper. So what I'm gonna do, instead of doing the eye line, you guys, I'm gonna do the silhouette of my face. Beginning of any sketch, we're using charcoal. My surface is cotton paper. It doesn't matter what kind of surface you use, but know that each surface will give you different results or different effects. So I like the porous surface. I make a distinction between format and surface. These are two radically different things. The format is the size and the shape, and the surface is the actual quality of the surface that we're going to be painting on. So I switch back and forth from format to surface, but they're not synonyms. They're two different things. So I like to use my potato shapes and my stick figures at the very beginning. And this is very important for me because when I work by silhouette, I have an opportunity to find out if the format and the silhouette are well integrated. This is something that we completely skip. So we move completely away from this, and then we start with the eyes, and then the eyes, we realize that they're not in the area that we wanted them to be, and then we feel trapped, and then panic sets in, and it's very frustrating. So first things first, look at your format. Find the silhouette of the shape of your head, and with a very simple stroke resembling a potato shape, sketch that, because what you want to do right now is find out the distance between the sides of your silhouette and the sides of the format. Oh, by the way, before I continue, there's a way, if you guys have a bunch of like screens on your, or video screens on your, let me see if I can just enlarge this. Never mind, I'm not gonna do it. So there's a way that you can hide the screens that are not showing any video and just show the two screens that are active right now. And it's gonna give you a much better view of what I'm doing. And also you can see me explaining things as well. And that is, if you go to the upper part, I think it's on the gallery view, you can just click the gallery view, and then you can hide. There's a drop down menu at the very top in the middle of the screen, and it's gonna give you the opportunity to hide the non-video participants. So if you do that, all the screens that are not showing any video will be hidden, and then only the two screens that are active, both of the screens that I'm using, will be featured. It's a great way to have a much larger view of what I'm doing, and you can still see me talking. And if you want a much larger view, you can pin one single screen. If you go to that screen and the three dots on the corner and you click on the dots, you can pin the video, and then that's gonna feature the entire screen. It doesn't affect me or anyone's video. It doesn't engage you or activate your video. These are options that you can use on your end to feature the images of or the feeds from both cameras larger. And so take your time, because it's otherwise, if we have right now, yeah, we have 13 people. So if you have 13 11 hidden cameras, the active video feed is going to be very tiny. Anyhow, so going back to this silhouette, charcoal allows me to wipe off and redo. Repetition and simplification, the two most important things in sketching at the very beginning. So we have the opportunity to do this many times, and we have I guess it's not, yeah, the privilege, I don't know, to simplifying the artistic right. I don't know. Simplification is very important at the very beginning, because otherwise we get trapped with details and we waste a lot of time. And then after 1 hour, we realize that the details that we did are not really where we wanted them to be. And then we have to wipe them off, and we freak out. So this happens every single time. And any of you who are brand new and have never experienced my sessions before, know that we have people that have painted for years with us, and they still sometimes they don't regard the distance between subject and format. And then we, at the very end of the process, we realize that things could have been moved to give more space around the subject. Why is that important? Unless you intentionally want to flush the edge of the figure with the edge of the format. It's important because leaving a little bit of like a visual path around it provides an organic and natural framing for the viewer who's looking at the painting to go around without interruptions, without weird without interruptions. Let's just put it like that. So look at the path. Is there a path around it? Is it balanced? Do you want it balanced? Is there any sort of like interruption that you feel it doesn't really frame visually your image? Here is a great opportunity to mention that we have to be both painters and viewers of our painting. It's not just us doing, and not looking at our painting as we were strictly viewers of the work. Because when you actually pause and step back and look at the painting as if you were looking at it from a non-artist point of view, you'll be able to analyze and assess if there are certain things that you may want to change. So I feel like that's always important. We get in the mood of only doing and not viewing, and we miss a lot of elements. So once I have this, I realize that the head is a little bit too high. So I'm going to make my adjustments. So notice that I'm not going into any details inside unless I feel I've done some work outside. Silhouette work for me, it's the safest way to go about. And I think I need to give more space. Yeah, I need to give more space on the right side, actually. So I'm using a kneaded eraser because I don't have enough space. I think that's good. Background is not important in this assignment unless you have something that you want to feature, but I think that does it for me. All right, so I think that's okay. And I'm going to go to the next step, which will be start featuring what I call the structural lines. Structural lines, once we have a basic silhouette, are the lines that break up the silhouette into smaller fragments. This is very important because we want to fragment or split up that silhouette before we add details. If we add details first without structural lines, we won't have as many visual references. And then it'll be just a gamble where the eyes are gonna go and where the lines of the mask are going to go. So what I try to do is position the main structural lines on a portrait, which are generally, and in broad terms, the hairline, number one, it separates the forehead from the head or the rest of the head. Luckily, we're not going to have it here. The chin line just separates where the facial features are from the neck. And then the neckline, if the person's wearing something, because that kind of like gives you a sense of how the head is or the neck is anchored on the torso. So the good thing about this is that we still have three, but they're a little bit different. The first one, it's the hairline. So what I'm going to do on my silhouette, I'm going to add my first structural line, which is going to be the hairline in my case. I'm not going to go into eyes or eyebrows yet, because I know this is very foundational. It's going to help me to then add the details in a much more calibrated, accurate, although I don't like to use that word that much, but in regards of painting, yeah, calibrated or more integrated. So the second is basically the line of the mask. Okay, and then the third one, in my case, the mask goes all the way to the neckline. So this will be my three structural lines. And why is this so helpful? It's helpful because I reduced my entire drawing area from 100% to much less when I do the potato shape. So I don't have to worry about drawing things outside of that. So if I do the structural lines, then I further shrink the drawing area on each of those fragments. So this is work that needs to be done before we think of details, because the reason why we go to details is because, in my opinion, we want to see something happening in our drawing or sketch as soon as possible, because if we feel like if we do, it's going to give us confidence to move forward. And this is an illusion, because if we don't do all the preparatory foundational work before, we're going to find ourselves that, yeah, that looks like two eyes, but we don't know where they're going to be placed. And then we're going to feel, it's like taking one step forward and then 100 steps back. We can get something that looks like eyes, but then they're not going to be anchored or well integrated. So painting is great because it encourages us to manage and organize all the foundational elements that need to happen before we go into likeness. So over time, you realize that likeness is not that important. And there are other things that come before likeness that will facilitate your process and make it more enjoyable. Because at the end of the day, is about experiencing something positive at the end. So if we feel insecure because we don't look at anything happening, and then we're going to try to add some details because that we think that that's going to make the drawing move forward, right? But then we're just going to hit a wall. The eyes are not going to look like whatever, and then they're not going to be placed whatever we want them to be. So all that, this mini lecture just to say that don't rush, basically. It's going to bring the ear. So right now, what am I doing? I'm just going to bring the eye line, perhaps. And then, oops, something happened with my microphone. Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, so the most important thing in a portrait is one piece that's basically comprised, I think that's a word, right? Between 4 points. So in regards of like how to approach a portrait, for me, this is the most useful way to do it, because it's not relying on formulas, it's relying on location. And then every face has a different organization of facial features, obviously. So I'm going to bring up these 4 points. 2 are the tear ducts of our eyes, and the other 2 are the heads of the eyebrows. So remember that I just showed before the anatomy of an eyebrow. So find the 2 heads of the eyebrows and then the 2 tear ducts. If you connect those 4, you'll have like a trapezoid-like shape that's called the keystone. The keystone is a traditional term in painting or drawing that determines those 4 points on a face. Why is that important? Because the keystone concentrates, or it's the area where there's the crossing of the most important axis on our head. The vertical axis that separates both sides, symmetric sides of our face, and then also the eye line. So it's the crossing of those main axes that's considered, in my opinion, the most important part of a face. So luckily here, we don't have the rest of the facial features, so we can really enjoy painting eyes. And this is something that I really love about this assignment. And I want to thank you for being here and doing it, because it's really good. So you have on the paper, if you have one. So the first thing that I want to say is the keystone, it's not always in the middle of our face. It would be in the middle of our face if we were looking forward. Depending on the orientation of your head, your keystone will be towards the left or towards the right. It's very important because we have a tendency of making things way too frontal. So I'm just gonna do my keystone, basically. My keystone, it's off, and oh yeah, never mind. My microphone is playing games. So it's off. There's not much distance between those 4 points, so it's very flat in my case. So I think I'm happy with that. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So again, I'm avoiding doing eyes now. I'm still doing preparatory things before I place my facial features. I want to start my house from the foundation and not from the roof. Extremely cheesy metaphor, but it applies here also. So find where, not only what your keystone looks like, depending on the image, but where it's located within your face. Is it dead in the center? Just make sure that if it's there, make sure that it is there, because our brains play tricks on our eyes. We have a habit of painting faces or drawing faces from childhood that makes them always facing forward. So unless we take that habit, we kind of like chop it up and study it and then bring it together, we will repeat the habit no matter what kind of face we have in front of us. So our jobs as artists are always to challenge our habits and expand the complexity of our observation, or through observation, I would say. It's a never-ending job or responsibility. And studying anatomy and going over the different components help to bring up that complexity. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to start with the eyebrows. For me, when I do a portrait, I don't even consider the mask, but I always start with the eyebrows after the keystone. Eyebrows are the most architectural part of the face. They are also great areas to anchor the rest of the facial features. I don't start with the eyes. We have a tendency of starting with the eyes, and then we make the eyes very small, and then we make the eyebrows related to the eyes, and then we have a lot of head and a few space for the for the facial features. So what I like to do is, considering where I'm at right now, I'm going to start from the upper right corner of my keystone, I'm going to start hatching from the head of the eyebrow, see where the arch of the eyebrow is. And in my case, I don't have the tail showing because the tail of the eyebrow is wrapping around my face. So notice that I didn't do the eyebrow with one line. I hatched it following the hair growth direction. If you just do one line, it's just going to be like windshield wiper style, regular and same from beginning to end. So consider, where is the head of your eyebrow? How is the hair if or the hair growth? And yeah. So what happens if you don't have eyebrows? Because that happens and that has come up, or barely any. So then you have to follow the sort of like configuration of the bone structure, the eyebrow bone, because there is a hard surface right on where the eyebrow grows, I guess, that separates the bone from the soft tissue. And you can see a distinction between those areas because the soft tissue is recessed. So you won't see a perfect line, but you will see a distinction in value. So if you barely have any eyebrows, that sounds horrible, right? You don't have eyebrows. Anyhow, so guide yourself with the bone structure. I mean, the eyebrow bone. So I have my first eyebrow. Yay, success. I'm enjoying the process. I'm having fun. I'm not getting lost. I don't feel conflicted if this looks like me or not because it doesn't look like anything. So these are the reasons, the emotional and psychological reasons why it's good to break the steps down so you don't feel overwhelmed and then you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to redo this a million times. No problem if you have to redo it. Repetition is our friend, and the charcoal is also our friend because it allows us to do this many times. So I'm going to do the other eyebrow. So where's the head? The head's a little closer, so I'm just going to do it a little closer. And how's the arch? The arch, it goes very flat up to the arch and then it goes down. So what's important here is that the tail of my eyebrow, I'm gonna look at the tail in comparison with the first structural line that I did. This is what's important here because we make the eyebrows very short or we disregard them until the very end. I wanna make sure that I give the proper frame to my eyes, and I'm using the keystone and the distance between the tail of this eyebrow and the hair, the hairline, to find out, based on what I have in front of me, if it's too much or if it's too little. So the opposite, if it's too little or too much. Anyhow, so this is a good way to find a point of reference. I try to avoid doing things just for the sake of doing things. I try to avoid doing things just because I think they're going to give me the illusion of a face. I prefer to stick to points of reference that are not associated with likeness. And this is how I best and most successfully move my drawing forward. Okay, so then after that, I got my eyebrows, and I'm just gonna start doing the eye lines basically. So tear duct is always the best place to start your eye line because it's sort of like a shape that's pinched. So it gives you a hard point to start the waves of your eye line. So I'm gonna do the eye line on top based on the eyebrow. So I'm multitasking right now. And I'm looking at how much distance there is between the eye line, the upper eye line, and the eyebrow. And then before I do the lower eye line, because I don't want to get too carried away, I'm going to do the eye line on my other eye. And again, I'm looking at where it ends in comparison to the tail. Always find a relationship in everything you sketch, because if you don't, our drawings will become very Frankensteinian, which is a word that I search and it does exist. Meaning it's gonna look like we're drawing facial features belonging to different faces, and then we're going to feel frustrated, and we will want them to make them come alive, and they won't come alive. Always find relationships between every line you add and something you already have. So yeah, so anyhow, upper line. By the way, the upper line of our eyes, it's not regular. There's also an ascending line, way to curve it, and then how it flatten the curve. It's now something that's part of our colloquial language. So check out how the curve of the upper line flattens, because that matters. I hope that I'm using this without being tone deaf. Okay, I'm gonna do the bottom part. Whoops, sorry, the bottom part of the eye. So again, from the tear duct, and I see how it's kind of like the wave. It's less curved than the top. If we make the top the same as the bottom, we're gonna have Egyptian-looking eyes, which in defense of the Egyptians, it's not like they didn't know how to draw, because they have exquisite, beautiful Renaissance-like portraits that they did. They call them funerary portraits. And maybe Jen, if you can you upload some funerary portraits from the Egyptians? And then also, if you can bring a hieroglyphic portrait, because it's important. We think Egyptians had no clue about drawing, and in fact they did. They used portraits or facial features as a way of creating language, and then they had these masterful portraiture skills. So yeah,
you got it.
Thanks, Jen. And I know the Getty has the Getty Museum has a few of those, and they literally place them on top of the tombs, or the coffins, or what's the word? Sarcophagus. Is that a word? Yes. They place them on top on the face, and they're very, very realistic. And if you bring them up, we can talk later about skin tone and all that kind of stuff, because it's really cool. And hopefully we'll give you a different view of Egyptian civilization that it's not shown as much. I'm doing the iris, not the pupil. I'm doing the iris. The iris in my face, and generally speaking, I would say 99% of the people in a resting pose, it's covered by the upper lid. So it's not fully shown. So we only show like a crescent shape, like a crescent moon shape, but it's hidden below. And this is something that we have to articulate, because if not, our wired brain will start doing eyes the same way we did when we were kids, a full iris. And we would be looking at our portrait 100 million times. Our brain will not catch any of that. It will just tell our hand to do the full circle. So observation is something that comes with practice, and drawing helps develop observational skills. But yeah, so basically I think that's it. All right, so I have this time-wise. Okay, I'm just gonna have to speed up here because, all right, the rest, I'm gonna do the color, and then the line, I think that's okay. And then really quickly, I just spent too much time, but I love spending time with portraits, because these things I think are important. I don't care if we just paint for a little bit, but I feel like this is super important. All right, so I'm just gonna do shading, darker to lighter. It's the final stage in sketching, and it's gonna give us more of an illusion of light and form. So I'm going darker to lighter. So side of the charcoal, and you can smudge if you want. And this is a little bit darker, so I'm just gonna, yeah, we'll be able to go back and, oh, the fold of the skin. I didn't do the fold of the upper lid. Very, very, very important important piece, but we'll be able to paint it. I have to squint my eyes. And this is the most important part, my forehead. When I shade, I have an opportunity to actually discover more things. Shading for me, it's what, it's a revelation. It's a revelatory exercise. I can actually see more things that I possibly have missed. I need to do a larger forehead, but that's okay. I'll be able to make adjustments when I paint. Yeah, my forehead's like too low. So things will show up in your drawing as you develop them and your painting. So you think you will be correct or accurate, and then you add something new, and then that's not the case. Yeah, so using the kneaded eraser also to sketch. I think that's okay. I may have to move my eyes. And then the ear. I'm looking at the alignment of the ear with something else. What can we align the ear off with? Sorry. So in my case, it's the eyebrow. So I'm just gonna try to find out the top of the ear compared to the eyebrow, and the bottom, it's a little bit lower. Okay, so I think that's okay. And this is what happens with sketching. We feel really engaged, and then we start getting excited about seeing new things, and which is all good. I think this is important. I'm just gonna bring that. And we shouldn't care at all. Yeah, I see a lot of things that I want to change already, but that's okay. Because when we start painting, we can make a lot of changes. Painting is drawing, so it doesn't mean like we finish drawing right here and that's it, it's over. We don't have to take care of drawing anymore. The opposite, as we add layers, we will be able to discover new positions, new relationships. Our eyes get acclimated with the image. I'm not even talking about colors and values and all that kind of stuff. It takes time, so observation, it's a slow process. So that's why I don't disregard, or I don't mind spending time with a sketch. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to do a bunch of repositioning. All right, so I'm gonna introduce my palette, 2 liquids, 1 solvent, 1 medium. The medium has a little bit of the poppy seed oil. Don't worry about what kind of medium you have. The difference between the solvent and the medium is the solvent helps us create a wash and then clean the brushes between applications. And then the medium helps us soften the paint so it becomes fluid enough so we can start applying it. So, and it does also all kinds of things. But yeah, 2 liquids, which is kind of like the standard, 2 liquids, 1 solvent, 1 medium in my case. My palette, it's all neutrals. And then I have the pink and the blue, the light pink and the periwinkle. And also I just brought the equality orange because I feel like on my skin, I may be able to use it. So I'm going to talk about skin tones and how to make them with neutral tones. So don't worry about what colors you have or the name of them. We have a video that explains our palette in detail. If you haven't watched it, it's on our website on the webinar page, so you can watch it. I kind of like stick to the same palette, neutrals, unless there's something that I want to bring in. And I forgot to bring green, so I may add the green later. It just depends. So first step, big brush. We use round bristles or round brushes, and I like them better than flat ones because especially with wash, I want to be able to apply paint in a very targeting way. So we're just going to pick up some turpentine, and in my case, yeah, darker to lighter. So I'm just going to get some black or some raw umber, and then just anchor my darks. So the wash, it's very it's a very technical stage, and in which we will seal the charcoal, prep the surface, the painting surface. Realize that now I'm not using the term format because I'm not drawing anything, or I'm regarding anything related to the format. I'm now gonna target the painting surface. So we want something that feels very watercolor-like, and then basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna guide myself by how much charcoal I have on my sketch, and I'm gonna do darker to lighter. So I'm not worried about losing definition at all, because what's important here again is to make sure that our surface, the painting surface, is prepped. And what does prep mean? It depends on the surface, but generally it means that it's wet, that the pores of the surface are saturated, and that the charcoal is not on the way when we paint things over it. So that's why the main function of the wash is, for me, a wash is also an opportunity to break the ice, an opportunity to remove the blankness of the paper. So it's not just a technical step. So I'm not trying to be super careful. I'm just basically, yeah. And don't worry. I mean, the least of your worries should be what this looks like. We're not there yet. So everything's very foundational so far. So we have this fear that we have to learn how to manage it, about likeness associated with success or failure. And it's so toxic and poisonous, and really silly. So, but it's so powerful. It's such a, that fear could really paralyze us and kind of like make us think, it makes us think that we're not, the painting is not worth moving forward. So yeah, it's an illusion, it's a ghost, it's not real, it's in our heads. This is not supposed to look like anything at this stage. And that's one of the issues that I have with other, or some, I should say, with some art classes, online art classes. It's the fact that, you know, they say it's simple, everyone can do it, but they start with a very, very, very literal sketch. And there's very little room for flexibility. So I always feel like, you know, it's unfair. It's, you know, it's not, it doesn't speak to me. This is not how I sketch. So why should I base my success in the fact that my sketch has to look like something specific? I feel it's very paralyzing, and I don't like it. So that's my point of view from an instructor taking other classes, because I think it's very good to take classes regardless, so you can see how other people articulate similar premises. Since I don't have green, I'm just going to use a little bit of like a ecru, yellow ochre, and a little bit of Payne's gray, because yellow ochre is a good substitute for yellow, and Payne's gray, it's very bluish. So it gives me a very tarnished, muddy green, but that's okay. I just want this surface to get covered. So we can just basically start with first notes on the second hour. Believe it or not, we just went through the first hour. I just get so passionate about important things in the sketch that time then flies. I don't care. This could be a wash, and this is the difference. The difference going through the experience is that you could have a good wash and have been able to articulate a lot of things that we weren't aware of, and that makes it a successful experience. Or base everything on a painting that looks like super detail and not being able to articulate what we were doing. I'd rather prefer to be able to go through things even though my stage may not show as much development, rather than just the opposite. All right, let me just kind of concentrate on this because I think I'm saying confusing things. Why do we like this light blue? It's called Radiant Blue by Gamblin. We use it a lot because I feel like it's a light color. It's a high key color. So our neutrals, they're generally very dark, the browns and the ochre and the yellow ochre. So it's good to have a cold, light tone. I think that would be my reasoning for that. It's good to have a cool, light tone. And I think this blue does it for me. It's a great substitute for white. It's not that light, obviously, but I could use it before I use white. And you can really create nice tones when you mix it with other colors. Okay, that's it. And then I'm just gonna basically use ecru, the linen color for the face. So depending on the skin tone, you could use ecru with a little bit of raw umber to make it lighter or darker. But what's important here is that the surface is covered, so I'm not trying to match any colors. I just want to have a little bit of a surface done. Yeah, okay. A little bit more ecru, so hopefully we'll be able to catch up with the time. And there's some blue on the eyeball, so on the, what was the word again? Jen, what's the word of the white of the eye? I forgot already.
It begins with an S. Hold on, let me pull it up. It just was like, it's, oh gosh, it's
Sclera.
Sclera? Sclera. Yeah, Sclera? You got it.
Okay, yeah. All right, thanks. All right, so
we'll get there.
Yeah.
You're better at pronouncing words than I am.
No, that's okay.
No, it's so true.
Oh man, sometimes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So let's not get to let's not get to. Let me just kind of like see if I can sew thoughts together. Caught up with what this looks like or not. All right. It's okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. That's my. That's basically my wash, and just 3 minutes short of the first hour. So not too bad. If you can get there before the hour, that's great. Mind you, we all have different speeds when we paint. And some of us, they take the 2 hours. Hania, I know you're there, and I love that you do that. And Darlene as well. To do a sketch and a wash, and that's it. And then manipulate those two things before we actually start layering more. It's a great idea. It just gives us the opportunity to, again, using the word manipulating, shifting, shaving, molding. So the less paint you have, the more you can change things. So it is a good idea. It's a wash that feels strong. It's better than a finished painting that has a lot of issues. So just have that in mind, because everyone follows different speeds, and at the same time, you have to understand that things are more valuable at the very beginning than at the end in regards of structure and composition. So I'm going to move to the second stage, which is first notes. I'm going to try to articulate the agenda for the second hour. I'm just going to give myself half an hour for first notes, if I can, and then another half an hour for second notes. We'll see how that goes, but it's a good idea to stop and pause and do two things. Number one, find out what stage you're at, because sometimes we only give room to our brains to think one thing, and that is just paint and move forward. I invite you to consider to assess where you are in the process, because that's going to give you the opportunity to strategize much better than just go, 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 and then paint. So stop and think, where you are in the process, and in the time that you have, how much time you have left, and what you want to accomplish, and how are you going to strategize about it. So 4 points, not 2. So we are right now at the end of our wash. We're going to start our first notes. So that's point number 1. And then I have 1 hour left. That's point number 2. And in that hour, I want to do 2 things: first notes and second notes. That's point number 3. And to do 2 things, I'm going to dedicate half an hour for one and half an hour for the other. And that's point number 4. If I do that, then I'll know that I have that much time, or I need to go to the next area. If I don't do that, I'm going to start with one eye, and that's basically what I'm going to end up with at the end of the painting, only a single eye. I don't know if I'm going to have time to work on this painting or not. I will make time because I love doing self-portraits. But we have to work in a way that we can do something with the time that we allow ourselves to work with, because otherwise we'll never be able to paint anything. We should be able to paint whether we have 2 hours or 20 minutes. So medium brush, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my liquids. I'm going to use the medium to mix with the paint, and then I'm going to use the mineral spirits to the solvent to clean the brush. And I want consistency. Consistency is very important. I want something that's a little bit thicker than before, but not too oily or too thick. I'm going to start with darker to lighter. That doesn't change. And I usually go to the edges of shapes that I already have and start resketching them again. This is another opportunity that I have to draw one more time. Drawing is the basis of everything, I have to say. And it's not separate from painting. They're all both happening at the same time. When we paint, we are drawing with our brushes. We have this idea of, and it's something that it's not our fault, because I think in art history, or the history of art education, there's always been an emphasis in separating drawing and painting as if they were completely different disciplines, when it's not like that. What happens when we separate them is that we think that they're not connected, and we think that we're good at one but not at the other, and that's not what really happens. Or we need to be good at one before we tackle the other. They're both connected and harmonious. So I'm slightly doing, what are first notes, by the way? First notes is when I go over the wash and I try to create pixelated areas that feel like a mosaic. I'm not interested in values of that color. I'm interested in color blocking. Let's say that's the closest definition. First notes, it's a version of color blocking. So I'm not blending, I'm not creating any fancy nothing. I'm just color blocking. At the same time, I'm bringing a little bit of values, because I'm taking advantage of the transparency of the paint to create lighter tones. But basically, the idea is to go over the same shape. It's repetition. I go over the same shape, but with paint that is a little bit thicker. And then I have an opportunity to find out if I need to make some changes. What makes someone a good painter? What makes someone a good painter? Someone can argue that, you know, skills make someone a good painting. I couldn't disagree more. So it's important to continue expanding whatever tools you start with, but skills will not make you a better painter. So for starters, you will be a better painter if you can disassociate or separate success versus results. That will make you a better painter. And what does that mean? So if I think what I'm doing right now has a look that it's ridiculous or stupid or premature, not premature, but infantile looking. Um, those are things that will stop me from continuing. So those are things that come from a place of analyzing results and not taking care of process. So if you want to start being a better painter, you have to put all those associations not only aside, you have to throw them out the window because they're not going to serve any purpose. Don't associate results with success. This is not what painting is about. There's so many things that go on all at once. So yeah, and then we can talk about technical things. But painting is a very humbling experience because you have to deal with the fact that your decisions may just give you, you know, looks that may not be what you anticipated. All right, darker to lighter. I'm not working by location. I know I have to do lots of changes, and I think possibly I'm just gonna bring some, again, yeah, yellow ochre. I'm mixing some colors, but I'm anchoring all my dark notes first. Why is it a good idea to go from darker to lighter? With oil, it's a good idea because technically it's much easier to lay your paints that have white over your dark paints without getting muddy. So because the paint doesn't dry, so it's much easier to block the darks with lights. That's more of a technical issue in regards of why it's important to go from darker to lighter. For me, another thing that's also good in regards of like the reason why we go from darker to lighter, it's because when you place your darks, they serve as graphic anchors. They're very strong, and you can use them as points of reference. So yeah, period. So if I anchor my darks, then I will be able to navigate or expand the rest of the facial features based on those points of reference. It's much easier because they're stronger. They're much more predominant in contrast. So for me, that's the main reason why it's so good to do darker to lighter. We have to organize the values so we are more efficient with our time. Every brushstroke counts. There's no brushstroke that you apply that is going to, quote unquote, ruin your painting. That doesn't happen. This is something that we tell ourselves it happens. Oh my gosh, I just ruined it. We didn't ruin it. We just added something that gave us unexpected results. And then we start shifting the blame and yeah. All right, so I think that's okay. I'm not going to go into, oh, I have a tendency to be interested in taking care of negative space. What's negative space? Negative space is what's intangible, what's not, it doesn't have physicality, background, air, I guess. Positive space, it's what's physical and tangible. So in painting, we pick up the habit of thinking that the positive space, it's number one, and the negative space, it's kind of like not really important. And for me, that's not really accurate. It is both the positive space and the negative space that can help create the illusion of something. So because of that, I put as much emphasis on negative space as I do on positive space. As a matter of fact, I'm a believer that if you work on the negative space and develop it, It'll give you a frame for the positive space, so then you won't feel you have to overwork your positive space in order to create something that looks like a painting. If we don't have any negative space, this is what happens. We start working on our positive space, and then we stubbornly think that it needs more work, and we have to add more detail, and we need to put the eyelashes, otherwise it's not going to be good enough. And then there we go, we lose control, and then we overwork our portrait. And then the remaining of the painting session, it's about executing corrections, and then yeah. So, which is fine, but it's not really a fun place to, a fun position to be. So I'm gonna pause. What am I doing right now? I'm starting my first notes. And I know that I have this much time, and I want to put second notes. I'm doing darker to lighter, using thicker medium to create slightly more thicker consistency on my paint. So there's a little bit of coverage, and this takes some time because if I put too much medium, it's going to be too transparent, and it's not going to push the painting forward. If I don't put enough medium, it's going to be too thick, and there's going to be too much oil, and it's going to give me trouble later. So consistency is more important than lightness. I don't care what this looks like right now. I know I'll be able to put the eyes a little bit closer together. They're too far apart. So I'll be able to reposition that. But if I take care of other things that are more foundational, then it's just gonna facilitate the rest of the painting. All right, so I think that's good. And what else? I'm not gonna go into the shirt because I think that I could go into the shirt later. I'm just gonna go already on the, and I have a third brush. I usually use like 3 brushes. I was talking about how no matter how many brushes you have, you may have 12, 24, 100. Painters end up using the same ones. So 3, 4, and what happens is that if you find yourself needing more, maybe there are different versions of the same brush. So I notice that people use like 5, 7, 12 brushes, but they're going to use the small one for different colors. So you can use a lot of brushes. I recommend only using 2 or 3 max. And if you need more, find a version of the brush that is basically the same, but could give you, could be used to add a different color, basically. So medium, yeah, I'm just gonna use the small. I think we're gonna have, and so first notes, and I'm just gonna use this and see if I can, the eyelashes, darker to lighter, and then this. I'm just gonna reposition this eye already because I feel like I need to move one eye. What happens when we paint a portrait? So we have a tendency, our faces are not symmetric. Obviously, they look different from, each side looks different, but there's a certain similarity in regards of being, one being the mirror image of the other. So what happens is that, you know, we start doing one side of the face and we get engaged because we want to start molding it and painting the iris and the sclera. I think that's the word. I'm going to find out. But anyhow, so yes. And then what happens is that we get carried away, and then we start, the other side of the face drifts away from us. And it's going to be so hard to bring that to the same level as the other side of the face. My advice is don't overwork one side and let the other one drift away. Do a few strokes on one side of the face and then do the same strokes on the other side of the face. Your brain is fresh. It will remember what you did on one side of the face. and then you're going to be able to build both sides at the same time. So I started to already tweak with the iris and the eyebrow, and this eye is starting to kind of like drift away. So yeah, that's important for me. It just helps. It just helps a lot in bringing both things together. So I use the rag also as a painting tool or to wipe off certain areas. Yeah, and then this is a little bit closer. I need to bring this line, and this needs to be closer. Yeah, I think so. The eye line is much lower, so I'm starting to see things that I wasn't able to see. And this is all drawing, you guys. This is all drawing so far. Yes, I'm applying some color and stuff, but I'm mostly interested not only in kind of like articulating that, but in drawing. Yeah, slowly, I guess. Slowly, slowly, slowly. All right. So, and then what? So I'm just gonna now go back to the other. I'm gonna flip between one eye and the other eye. So there's something that happens all the time, and this is a perfect example. And I'm actually happy that it happens. We think it's easy to place both irises in each eye, and we know we just have to look at the eye, and then we just have to replicate it. So there is psychology-based instinct that we have that makes us recognize faces very, very easily. We're born with this instinct, and it's a survival instinct that allows us to recognize who is our protector, I guess, or who gives us food. So because it's an instinct, we don't unlearn it, and it doesn't just fade, and it doesn't decline or anything like that. It's permanent. So what happens is that on a face, every single slight change on a face, we will see it, we will recognize it, and we will understand that that's not the face that we're actually trying to portray. So likeness on portraiture, it's something that we have to deal with. It's not that portraiture is more difficult than still life or landscape. It's that we have this insidious sort of like a instinctual ability to recognize every single change on a face, and it transforms the face into someone else's face. So once we're aware that that happens, we can deal with it and understand that that's something that's part of our nature. But one aspect that is very important in that sense is that the position of the iris in each eye, unless it's correlating, we will find exactly if it's the direction goes in different ways or not. We could be forgiving in botanical elements and still lives, but with the position of the iris in the eye, we can't be as forgiving. We have to make sure that both eyes correlate. So mine are not correlating. So, and how do we manage that? So we have to find out how much of the sclera is in each side of the iris, and then compare it with the other eye. Because it's not just the size and the shape of the iris, it's precisely the amount of sclera on both sides that's going to determine the actual direction of the sight. So I'm going to start using white and maybe a little bit of blue and some gray, because the sclera, it's never super white. And I'm going to start with one side, with one eye, and paint the sclera outside. And I'm going to try to see the sclera shape as it is. I'm not going to pretend or try to just think that that's not a shape. So this is another example of why negative space could be more important than positive space. So yeah, I think so. I'm looking back and forth, and it's never, there's always more sclera on one side than the other. I think that's okay. So now I'm going to go to the other eye. And I need to recalibrate the eyebrow because it's much higher, first of all. Position the iris. And then try to paint the sclera outside. So more on this side and less on the other side. Yeah, I think that sort of like corrected a little bit the cross-eyed effect. It doesn't matter how many portraits we paint. The first iteration of the iris, it will look cross-eyed 99.9% of the time. We have to take care of that aspect. I'm gonna bring some ecru underneath because I need to cover, yeah. All right, and then some ecru on top. All right, so the eyes are a little bit more aligned, and now they don't feel as cross-eyed as they were earlier. I still have to work on the position of the iris inside of the eye. So these things are super important. So that's why I wanted to talk about the instinct to recognize faces, because we think that the blame is on us and we're not able to make faces and portraits are too difficult, and it's not that. The level of difficulty is because we have this capacity to recognize every single change on a face. And when it does change, the face is irrecognizable. I'll give you a pop culture reference. I forgot the name of the actor, the actress that did rhinoplasty, and then it was irrecognizable. And it was a minor change.
Jennifer Grey.
Tell me again?
Jennifer Grey.
Okay, well, yeah.
Right? From Dirty Dancing? Is that what we're talking
Yes,
about?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Were you trying to be polite and then I was rude?
No.
I can't remember her name.
No. You're right. I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, I'm talking strictly from anatomical and instinctual terms, because, you know, she got a lot of crap, and then it was unfair and sexist. But yeah, the minute you alter something on your face, you will be a different person. It's not because it was a botched surgery or something like that. It's because, and you can, if you can find the term, I think it's pareidoia. Pareidoia, it's the actual term that defines this instinct to recognize. So if you can just find it, Jen, we can talk about it later. But no one talks about this. And yeah, the minute you change something on your face, you will look different. All right, so what am I doing right now? So I'm just gonna try to bring the fold of the upper lid, because I feel like something that I need to bring. My paint is getting super thick here, but that's okay. So how do you deal with paint getting like thicker and not being able to paint? So you can do two things. My suggestion is that you use a very gentle application. So barely touching barely touching the surface, you'll be able to lay paint and make sure the paint sticks. And ultimately, if it doesn't, you get your rag, your cotton rag, and you wipe off that area completely, and you start from scratch. So if it's too oily and it's too hard to lay something on top, then you just go to plan B. All right, so I think that's okay. And I can barely see the fold of the lid. So I'm just gonna, and I'm not gonna use my, my thinner brush yet. And okay, I'm just gonna work on the eye of, on the white of the eye. And I'm gonna try to flicker, very important, flicker your eyes back and forth very often, because we have a tendency of spending much more time on our painting than we do on the subject that we're looking at. And this is a little darker. So right now I'm concentrating on one eye. Just decided that I need to bring this eye a little bit. I need to reshape it a little bit. And just bring some lighter notes instead of the iris. There's a highlight, a blue highlight. I'm just gonna, my brush is totally horrible. And look, the pointy, the point that you can, it doesn't focus. But I don't mind that. I'm gonna bring some, how do you create a skin tone, by the way, or flesh tone? So I like to start with one base, and then you can always make it darker or lighter. So this is also really good for, to talk about other things. Anyhow, so the best way to do it is if you get a little bit of the burnt sienna and a little bit of the ecru. And those two together, ecru and burnt sienna, they give you sort of like a tan color. So let me see if I can, yeah, my skin is a little bit dark. Well, I don't know if you can see it. It's a little bit darker than that, but an easy shortcut for skin tone, burnt sienna, the reddish brown, a little bit, and then ecru, the linen. Those two can do it. So once I have a base, then depending on the darkness or the lightness where the light reflects the skin, I could darken it with the raw umber. I mean, yeah, darken it, sorry. Or I could lighten it with the ecru and perhaps a tad of white and a little bit of the pink. That could give you also more of a specific flesh tone, depending on what you're doing it. But yeah, start with the base and then go lighter or darker. And by the way, there's no, this is what I love about flesh tones. There's no skin color that we have to match in regards to flesh tones. When we talk about flesh tone is basically variations of light, because regardless of the lightness or the darkness of the pigment on the skin, there will be areas of the skin that will be exposed to light that will be lighter, and areas of the skin that will be under shade and they will be darker. So and that's a beautiful thing in regards of not counting the color of the skin to create formulas, but counting just a base and then realizing, depending on the light hitting that skin, being lighter or darker. We all have light skin and dark skin. It just depends on where the light hits the skin, basically. Yeah, so I'm just trying to, yeah, if you were interested in finding a flesh tone, because I wanted to do something lighter on top. So above the eyebrow, generally the skin tone is lighter because the skin sort of like, or the bone makes the skin protrude outside and we get a little bit more light. And then I have some lightness on the skin underneath that I want to bring. Yeah. So I also want to say that the way I paint at this stage, I'm not trying to go back and forth with my brush. I apply the paint in a pixelated way. So I just do one stroke and I lift the brush, and maybe I just go over, but I never brush it back, because if I do, I'm going to scrub all the paint underneath, and then that's just going to be um, very messy. So, and I think that does it. Remember what I said at the beginning, simplification. So I'm not trying to capture the exactness right now, but just the essence of different parts of the eye. And I'm insisting because I'm stubborn and I want to prove myself that I can do it, of using this nasty brush to get a sense of the different parts, um, just to prove to myself that I don't have to rely on a thin, pointy brush to create definition. I could just create definition with a different size brush. I guess so. And then the fold on the skin. I'm just going to load up the brush and then try to create. Yeah, I think so. Well, let me just bring some darkness from the outside. Remember, negative space is as important as positive space. So I'm just going to shave the bone from the outside. And that's going to help me just position it against, yeah. And I think I need to work, I've noticed that I'm constantly working on the shape of the iris. Because the slightest change, and I'm so happy that we have time to actually work on the eyes, because usually on a portrait, we just have to move to the nose and then, but with this assignment, I'm just so happy that we have an opportunity to, and then I squint my eyes. I need to bring some lighter ecru on top. Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to move to the second eye, because what makes one eye look integrated is when it's related to the other eye. So we may spend like time doing one eye and blah, 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 but it's only in combination of the other eye that both will support and affirm each other. Okay, so we have half an hour, and I'm doing now, I'm basically doing second notes on one eye. So let's kind of like reassess of where I am and how much time do I have and what do I intend to do with the rest of my time. So the idea was to work on first notes, but I already overlooked this area to create more blue, and I went for the eyes. And then I started instinctually or involuntarily working on second notes. What's the difference between first notes and second notes? On first notes, we color block. On second notes, we create variations of that color. So I'll bring the analogy of the banana. If we were to paint a banana, the first note would be painting it yellow. That's the first note. The second note is to get that yellow and create warmer yellow underneath and lighter yellow where the highlight of the banana would be. So what I'm doing right now, it's not adding more color. What I'm doing is adding variations of the same color that I had. Very important, because unless I articulate what I'm doing, what I'll do is just add color, because if we don't know how to go about values, then we think that, you know, it's all about adding more and more color. So we're not quite there yet. Second notes are creating a spectrum of light to dark or dark to light. So that's why I created grays and I went over, and you know what, maybe this time that's it. I capitulated. I'm gonna use the tiny brush. That's it. I caved in. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I just want to get that fold of the upper lid, and I'm gonna drop it after I do the fold, because otherwise there's a risk of ending up this being a miniature painting. Maybe I'll do the eyelashes as well. Here, I just broke my promise again. Oh yeah. Well, it was worth to break the promise, because you can bring a lot of definition with a tiny brush. What can I tell you? And I'm working large, so I can't imagine if you have a smaller format, you guys, you may have a difficulty with this. Oh, yeah, a difficulty with this very important piece of the puzzle. All right, I'm just gonna drop this. And I possibly just took too much time doing one eye, and the other one now just drifted away completely. So this is an example of what we shouldn't do, but I ended up doing it. So nobody's perfect. Why did I do that? That's the question. Because I felt, you know, I didn't have control over the eye. They were looking at different directions, and then I started to feel doubt myself and feel panic. And I said, you know what? Let me just do one eye so I feel more comfortable. So it's a double edged sword. I feel great about this eye, but now what am I going to do with this other eye? Anyhow, so I'm just going to try to now see if I can bring more definition and pair this eye with the other eye. But this is precisely what I mean by putting too much work on one side of the face, and then when you go to the mirror image side, you feel like you're so far away from development that, yeah, I think I need to move. I think I need to move. Do I need to move the eye? Maybe not. Where's the tail? Let me just bring the skin around it. That's a good idea. Sometimes, as I said about negative space, if you work around the subject, you'll get a better idea about what to do. So it's always, for me, it's like a way of overcoming an obstacle, or trying to find a way around it, is by actually painting the negative space. I mean, I say negative space, but hopefully I'm not making things confusing, because this is tangible. I say negative space in the sense of like around the subject. Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah. It helped me so much. It helped me so much. So if you guys are following me at all, I'm happy that this is happening to me, because I just felt like, you know, I worked on this eye, and I achieved something that I'm happy about, but then the problem is that the other eye drifted away from me, and a way to sort of like recuperate, resuscitate the area, instead of like trying to mess with the eye, I just worked on the surrounding, on the outside, because it gave me the framework to assess if I need to do what I need to do with it. So it was a good way of casting a net, and then realizing the scope and the location and what that area actually needs. So uh, always go back to yeah, always rely on the outside. Okay, so that's good. And in that sense, I need to lower a little bit the arch of the eyebrow. It's too high. This is where we're at right now. We're being sculptors, because we're molding things, and it needs to be a little bit lower. So just as I did with I did it with the sketch. I said the most important, or the facial feature that I start with is are the eyebrows. And I said that because the eyebrows then give me the opportunity to relate or find relationships with the eyes. So I'm basically doing that right now. I'm just adding some work on the eyebrows. Because then I'll be able to make changes on the eyes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. Every brushstroke counts. This is slowly moving forward. We're always in a forward moving motion. Um, we never have setbacks, or we never sort of like um, underdevelop something. We're constantly elevating the work. So I'm a true believer that that's the best way to see how things develop. So this helped, and it could be something so silly as working the outside of it. And right now, this is, yeah, I'm using the medium brush, and I'm gonna try to draw again the shape of the eye. I need to bring back that shape for starters, because it's so far away right now, drifted away, that it needs to be redrawn. So just as I did with the other eye, I'm just gonna try to work with this kind of like medium brush. A gentle pressure against the surface, the painting surface. Super gentle. And then I'm just gonna bring some ecru and some white, because the fold of the skin here separates the eye line from the fold. I want to bring that. Yeah, that's working. That is working. So, and then I stop. Yeah, it's kind of working. Yeah, it's kind of working. So as long as we continue moving forward, that's all I'm asking. And I think that I am. So I'm just gonna continue adding second notes. Remember, I said the second notes are variations of value, darker to lighter. So if I have the skin on the eye and I put a lot of ecru, so I know that certain areas are lighter, so I'm bringing some white and I'm trying to create a highlight on those areas. And then some areas are darker, so I bring some raw umber, the darker brown, and I try to create shadows or darker notes. So what I'm not doing is kind of like bringing colors, new colors or additional colors to it, because I have to mold the light on that area, and that's gonna help me elevate the feature. So I'm not using colors for the sake of it. It's not going to make this work better, or it's not going to elevate that area. I have to be able to work with value first, and then after I achieve a certain level of or something that gets closer to the expectation that I had, then I can start adding some color if I see it. But like reaching out to color now because with thinking that that's going to do it, it has nothing to do with the quality of light is in that area. So I'm just going to continue right now and see if I can bring some lighter notes inside of the iris. Yeah, lighter notes inside of the iris. I think that's good. And I need to lighten up the sclera on this side a little bit lighter. The sclera, it's not white. It's not white. So our eyes are recessed a little bit to protect our precious organ. So there's no bone behind our eyes, you know, because if we smack our face against a door, which happened to me this morning, we're not going to hurt our eyes. It's just going to create a bump on the eyebrow because our bones protect our most precious organ on the face, I guess. So at the same time, because there's no bone behind it, the soft tissue it creates sort of like a protective layers, and it's recessed. So it's a little bit behind. So what happens is that when we get light on our face, the position of the sclera, it's already recessed. And then on top of it, we have a layer of skin that's covering or protecting the top and the bottom, and then we have the eyelashes. So all those little elements are making light very difficult to reach the sclera and make it super bright. So when we actually look at the sclera, don't look at in terms of like how white it is, but where are the shaded areas? It's not the same. It's a little bit lighter around the iris, but in addition, the eye, it's a ball. So because of the wrapping configuration, the sclera would be slightly darker, closer to the corner of the eyes, depending on the light, obviously. But so yeah, if you want the eyes to look weird, paint the sclera white. Then the eye will come forward a lot. It'll be completely flat, and it'll have more of an illustration kind of look. The sclera is not white. I'm working on that border, that edge between the iris and the sclera. I'm looking at how much sclera I have on one side and the other side and compare them. Because if I'm not careful about that, my eyes will look cross-eyed. Who cares? I mean, it's not like that's something important. I don't care. But I feel like all these things are important to at least consider when we, I'm just going to use that now. I'm using the small brush, you guys, because the reflection on the eye, it's important. And then I'm just going to use the small brush to redo the eye line. So it becomes a little darker. And there's a little bit of darkness right on the corner of the eye. I'm going to do it also. And the fold of the skin. The fold of the skin, it's the fold of the skin between the upper lid and the eyebrow, basically. The skin folds. And that fold is so important. It's so expressive. And by the way, the fold hovers above the tear duct. It doesn't connect with the tear duct. That's something also very important that I think it's good to point out. All right, I'm just gonna bring some lighter notes because the upper lid, it's not the same value. And here's when I bring up the concept of second notes. I need to find variations of value on the upper lid, And this is lighter right here. All right. Yeah, this is getting a little closer. I'm not even close to anything on the background, but that's okay because I think that's the most important part of the painting, our eyes. And we were talking yesterday about something that um, may be controversial. I realize that I find people more beautiful when they wear masks. And that's my position. I asked a couple of people and they said, you're crazy. Um, but I do, because for me, from a painter's point of view, it feels like the mask enhances the eyes. And the eyes being one of the most expressive parts of the face, it just brings them forward. It just accentuates the eyes, enhances the eyes. Um, so that's the reason why I think masks make people more beautiful, because I can actually look at their eyes. When I interact with a person, I realize that I look at the person's mouth a lot because I need to understand. And so my eyes go there a lot. But now that the mouths are covered, and I look more at the eyes, and I think it makes people more beautiful. And you can comment on that later if you want. That has nothing to do with painting, by the way. It's just an observation. Jen, what do you think?
Well, wow. Okay. Here we go. I think maybe they're more beautiful because I know that they're being respectful, and that in itself is a beauty on the inside that I'm seeing. So how's that for a
Wow.
very
Yeah.
so yeah. So
That's
yes, I agree, but just in a different way, maybe.
I love that. Yeah, I like that. Actually, that conceptually is beautiful. Yeah, because you bring also not the physical aspect, but the intention. I think that's very good. It's the sort of like argument that that I loved reading that article that I mentioned in the introduction about the masculinity and how some men feel like masks emasculate their masculinity, which is such a stupid argument. But in the article, it was a context in regards of uh, defining masculinity and how traditionally there is a component of masculinity that has to do with protection and being protective and in evolutionary terms. So the author of the article said that if anything, wearing a mask is more masculine because it shows that you are protecting others. So she made the connection between our evolutionary common trait associating masculinity with protection, with wearing a mask being masculine. And I love that because um, I think that's true. So what you just said reminds me of that article. All right, so we have less than 10 minutes. And what am I doing? So I feel like now I'm just going to parts of the face that needs some attention, or the head that I totally abandoned. I didn't even do the mask, so, or the background. Maybe I'll just bring some darkness on the rest of the mask. All right, so where am I right now? I finished the eyes on second notes, but everything else is completely undone. And I feel like I have 10 minutes, so maybe I'll just work on the actual mask. How's that? Because I feel like everything's important, especially the hair and the forehead. I have a lot of dry areas and I need to take care of those. but I feel like rather than doing that, since I feel like this is the strongest part of my painting, perhaps painting something that's adjacent to that could expand that effect. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm bringing some darker notes because I want to do some of the folds. One of the things that I love about the masks is the fact that there's this wrapping effect. So the light, it's not flat, it's different. So depending on the position of the light and your orientation, you'll have an area that's going to capture more, more light, and an area that possibly it's wrapping that's going to be a little bit darker. So I'm trying to bring that idea of something wrapping the face, because I feel like that's going to help the eyes look like also not so much flat, but being part. Yeah, I'm going to bring some blue to the black. Yeah, and that's the reason why this blue, it's so good, this light blue, because it can really cool off any color, bring a little bit of lightness without becoming too opaque, because white at this stage could be too overpowering. So just be careful when you use white, because it can really, really become so chalky. Trying to work a little bit fast here and bringing some lighter notes, so it just slightly becomes a little bit more form. I'm not disliking it. I know that I have a long way to go, but I'm not disliking it. And I think that was a good strategy. We have time, yeah. So I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. So we have a couple of minutes before the 2 hours. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and in which we recommend you guys hydrate and take whatever breaks you need, stretch, walk around, because this is very intense. And at the same time, take a photo of a snapshot of your work. If you want to share it, and if you want us to give you feedback, and then upload it on the folder. So you got the link of the folder. It's very easy. You don't have to sign in or anything like that. And if you can text it to Jen, and she'll upload it for you. But the Google folder, actually, it's pretty convenient and super easy. It's super easy. It's the best way, and it's just for us. So no one else can access it. Yeah, I think that does it. I just need to close. This is when I get excited about the painting, after the 2 hours. Now I feel like I wanna do things here and there. I get excited now. I'm just gonna blend this because it's a little bit too, how do you blend? We have like 2 minutes. So you clean up your brush, because now we have a lot of paint. And then whichever area you want blended, you basically blush it. But you have to be very gentle, and you have to clean up your brush very often. Because if you just get carried away, you're gonna start blushing, so everything will be a blur. So I'm gonna blend this area right here. So dry brush. And my eyebrows are a bit too dark. So now I can see so many things that I want to do. This is when the painting really starts, actually. Yeah, I want to do that. Thin it out a little bit. It's like too dark. I'm bringing some brush strokes and blending it here. I'm so excited. Yeah, we have a minute. And then, hairline, things about habits that we have. It happened to me here. This line is way too strong and too harsh. So what happens is that the area where the hair grows is very soft. It's basically, we can see the root of the hair and the skin through the roots. So it's important to soften that area if you see it. But then if we have something that's covering our face, or we have the forehead line or the bone structure line showing, that area should be hard. So the quality of the line on the hairline changes. It's hard when there's no hair growth, and it's soft when we see hair growth. So this should be a little bit softer. I'm gonna work on it later, but this should be softer. These should be hard, and this should be softer right up here. That's something I should work on. But yeah, very important. We make the same line quality. Um, and yeah, so upload the snapshots. I'm going to take a picture of this and then upload it. You'll get a a different view of your work. Sometimes it helps when you look at your work from through a screen and you realize that there are certain things that you want to change. And we'll see you. I'm going to stop. I'm going to pause the recording, and we'll see you in 10 minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A. You don't have to present anything, but we'll do a Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll go into critique and feedback. All right, we'll see you in 10 minutes. The break is so short. Break is so short, but anyhow, I just changed. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So thank you. Perfect. So what I'm gonna do, thanks for coming back, and I organized some photos on the album. I'm gonna start sharing the album, and we can start talking about yeah, we can start talking about things. Thank you. The work looks amazing. You guys are incredible, and it's so great that we do this and we do it together, so we can just kind of like talk about what happened and things that we can go over. I just put my piece right here. Let me see if I can remove the comments. Okay, so I just put my piece here, and I'm just gonna go over it because I love doing self-portraits, and I think it's very important to to continue if we can. So a couple of things. Critiquing, it's not criticizing. I make a distinction. When I offer observations, they are based on things that I think could facilitate or build on what you've done. So I'm not gonna point at things that are wrong or bad or anything like that. Second thing is that I consider all our work to be a work in progress. So these are not finished paintings, and that's very important because it's going to take a while. If you can, I would invite you to continue working because it's going to make the painting much more elevated. But yeah, they're all in progress, and since they're in progress, it means that they're not a final result, or the look of them, it's not supposed to be final or something like that. So I think this is very important before I start. And then I just wanted to bring the, thanks Jen for uploading these, the funerary portraits. These were mostly created 1 century BC, and then 2 centuries after Egyptian, Roman, when things were kind of like converging, I guess. And this is surprising because we think of the Egyptians only painting hieroglyphics, but Jen, brilliant, perfect. This is exactly what I meant. On top of the sarcophagus, they painted the person. And look at the 3/4 perspective and how Renaissance-like they are in that sense. I mean, great find. Gorgeous. The Getty Museum here in LA, there's a room, and they showing a bunch of them together. But this, yeah, different genders and different skin color. Come on. This is a perfect example. It's an example of hopefully looking at Egyptian culture in different ways, because we're not familiar with this aspect. I want to talk about skin color as well, you know, lighter and darker. So it's a great representation of the variety, I guess, of skin colors at the time. And yeah, that's exactly right. You would say this is Renaissance-like. So perfect. Pareidolia. Ah, I almost got it. is the tendency for incorrect perception of a stimulus as an object, pattern, or meaning known to the observer, such as seeing shapes in clouds, seeing faces in inanimate objects, or abstract patterns, or hearing hidden messages in music. Pareidolia can be considered a subcategory of apophenia. Okay, well, you know, man in the moon. Yeah. Pareidolia was at one time considered a symptom of human psychosis, but it is now seen as a normal human tendency. It's not confined to humans. Scientists have for years taught computers to use visual, let me just move my screen here because I can't see it. Visual clues to see faces and other images. Yeah, well, just talk about facial recognition and see what kind of like, what kind of technology they have been implemented. So I'm gonna go to the people in the UK first. Jen, any questions during the chat? Any comments? Oh, wait.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I had the
Okay.
volume down.
I was wondering if you did. And I was like, I'm going to check one more time. Hi. Okay.
Hi.
Yes. No. Hi. No questions unless I'm crazy and something's forgotten. If it is, just go ahead and chat away, you guys.
Okay.
I will make sure it gets answered. But.
Okay. So perfect. So Chloe, that's awesome. I like the two great things: composition, very intentional, and also monochromatic. That's a brilliant idea because you got away with color and you focused on value. So I think that's very smart actually, and really good. Conceptually, it is what it is. So removing color, it facilitates the application of values. So good example and great idea. And in that sense, I put those two together. Yeah, but I mean, this is like much more developed, and I can see some of the second nodes. I think it's great. Let me just kind of like, I'm gonna use the images of our faces if you have them, but not sort of like to compare too much, because I think working off of a photograph, it's always dangerous because we always think we have to make our work photographic. And I'm gonna try to give you pointers that are not based on likeness or photographic aspects. So I can see, and you did it very well, I can see that you have the source of light coming from the left, and then you have this actually kind of darker. So I think I would just create more of a darkness on that area, if you ask me, because I think there's something interesting about that variation. If you notice, much lighter here, the point of light, the highest concentration is on this side of the face, and then there's a gradation from that to darker, and especially this one right here. So I would possibly kind of like work on the forehead and create even more darkness in that sense. So yeah, I'm squinting my eyes. I would probably, I'm gonna do the same on mine, but I would thin the eyebrows a little bit, not thin them, sorry. So make them a little bit less graphic. So I feel like there's something much softer. And look at the transition as well, darker towards the head and much softer towards the tail. And I just feel like this will help you a lot to soften the tail and concentrate the darker. So the quality of light on the eyebrows, I would consider as well something to work on it. And then finally, I think the hair is great. There's much intensity and darkness on this area. So I feel I would probably bring a little bit more contrast, definitely. Because I feel like that feels very uniform and flat in that sense. And I would work on the quality as well. So other than that, I love yeah, I think that's good. So I'm gonna jump, Mia, if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump to Hania, because Chloe and Hania are joining us from the UK, and I know that's very late there, and I just wanna go over the feedback with them first, and then we can just go over LA time or West Coast, because we are in different locations, you guys. So great image, Hania, and great rendition, I would say. As usual, I love the fact that you concentrate only on wash and charcoal. There's something really good about that, you know, that you really slow it down so you can just work on that. So I give it to you because that's possibly the way to go. So when I give feedback, the first thing that I point at is how are things compositionally. So I can tell you that in that sense, notice that the way you crop the image. So you have your hair really close to the top, really close to the top. So I feel here, it just feels chopped. So compositionally, this is an interruption of sort of like the visual path. So when you continue working, what I would say is, because I wouldn't try to mess around with it, make it much more cropped than it is right now. So it looks like it's intentional, because otherwise, compositionally, it may look like you didn't have enough space and then you ran out of space and you had to basically crop it. So that would be my observation. I would say my observation would be that I like the separation between head and shoulders. We tend to make the head and the shoulders really close to each other. So I think that's a good thing. And but I would say, yeah, my number one point would be compositionally, and this is something that happens all the time. How we integrate or not integrate the format with what we paint within the format. So that's something that comes up first when I see a painting. There's something really nice about this harmonious shape, because the width, it's much bigger or much wider between the ears, but then there's a softer convergence. And I feel like here, it's very triangular. So you have the ears and the hair, and it just diverges upward. And if you consider that with the fact that it gets chopped on the top, it doesn't have the same softness that you see on the silhouette. This is very, oh, that looks good. This is very important because you're facing forward. So you have like mirror image pretty much symmetric. Since you're facing forward, then you have to give more attention to things like composition and silhouette, because otherwise you could get away with sort of like playing tricks if you have a different position. I love, Mia, that you brought in the hand, but with this, you have to pay attention at that shape. So yeah, I just feel like it's very divergent. It doesn't have the softness, and that's something that I would consider. Yeah. Anyhow, so Chloe and Hania, if you have anything you want to bring in, you can chat also. Any questions? Now it's the time. If not, don't worry. But yeah, so let us know. We'll give you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Chloe, how was that, the experience? Did you have
It was great. It was good, thank you. Yeah, I think so. Thanks for the feedback. I'm going to do more on it in the morning.
Okay. Good job.
Yeah, I found it, I don't know, I just found it interesting that there's so much that you aren't painting because the mask is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did it give you more of an opportunity to actually work on the eyes? Did you think like you now?
Yeah, and I loved your diagrams and things. That was really good. Okay. I need to revisit it all and take some more information from it. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can wait. I'm looking forward. As I said, brilliant that you used the black and white. I think that's great. All right, so I'm just gonna move forward. Sure. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna move forward with Mia's painting. I think this is fantastic. My gosh, it looks so good. So cool, and I love the mask, and it's really well developed. There's a lot that you added. I love that you incorporated your body, the rest of your body, into the painting. This is a different layer, and I think it's super cool. It just explains or extends the narrative. So I really like it. So again, I'm just going to use the image as a reference.
It's for my Tinder profile.
Say that again.
It's for my Tinder profile.
Okay. Well, listen, yeah, that would get my attention for sure. I think that's brilliant. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I like the fact that you incorporate and then you also sort of like tilted the camera. I mean, the face looks um, uh, vertical, but then the background is tilted. So that creates a very dynamic composition. And I think that really helps elevate the painting a lot. So I would say in regards of composition, I think it looks great. Let me just move my little thing away from it. Yeah, it looks great because you left enough path to frame the face. It doesn't feel like unintentionally cropped or that you ran out of space. So I also like the fact that the eye level, it's sort of like balanced with the middle of the painting. So all those things, trust me, they come first before actually we analyze whatever, likeness or realism or whatever you want to call it. So I think you did a good job with that compositionally. I would say, I mean, I know there's so much that we didn't have time to do, but I'm going to concentrate on the face. And I love the fact that you have a slighter shadow on this eye. So I feel like you got it. I think you got it, but possibly maybe lightening up the other side because it feels very similar. I see that there is a distinction between values, but there's something about this shadow that it's created by the hair that I feel I would possibly soften this also a little bit so it looks like it's actually on your face, because right now it feels kind of like outside, but there's something nice about the hair coming also in front of the eyebrow and in front of the eye. So I would bring it forward a little bit more or soften it or blend it. I love the shadow here. I think this is just beautiful. It just gives the idea of hair volume and how it's not really stuck on your face, but it creates a shadow. So I would do a little bit of softening on the other side, possibly. Yeah. And I'm sorry, it just went back. And yeah, maybe bringing some more highlights. I would just lighten up the skin tone in certain areas, more highlights. I love the shape of your eyes. I think that's great. Yeah, maybe it's just like a little bit more bone structure in the sense of like bringing a tad of highlight on top of the eyebrow and below the eyebrow. Yeah, and then I would possibly bring also more volume on top of the hair. I just feel like this reads more like a line, like a straight line. There's something really cool about this, the growth of the hair on the front. And this feels a little bit more organically alive, I think. So I would possibly also consider that. And then in regards of the hand, I mean, because you brought the arm, that's something that's, I think it's important. So on the arm, there's the aspect of the cylindric aspect of the arm. So the way that there's an area that's much lighter and then darker on both sides. So I would possibly work on that, especially here, because you could say that the hair is hiding this part of the arm, but here I would try to make it a little bit more cylindric. And there's something that happens with the forearm. It's the fact that our forearm, because of the muscles, it's never parallel. There's a convergence or divergence, depending on what you. And I feel like here, it's not as clear. But if you notice on the arms, they're on the elbows, it's a little bit much wider, and then it starts converging towards the wrists. So there's something really nice about that rhythm of the lines converging. I feel like I would just kind of like incorporate it here as well. In regards of the rest, I think it looks great. I would just develop it. The stark white, it feels almost like unpainted. So if you wanted to, yeah, bring maybe an off white, it would just kind of like integrate it and give you a sense of space. What do you think?
Yeah, that's great. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I'm excited. This looks fantastic. Good job. And so unusual. I haven't seen, I mean, I've seen selfies on social media of people taking pictures of themselves with a mask, but not a single self-portrait painted self-portrait. So I'm excited about all these paintings.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's nice to see you back. Darlene, great job, great photo, and I love the color palette. I love the fact that, you know, again, compositionally, first things first. I think it looks great. You give enough space, especially on the top, so it doesn't feel forced or squeezed or that you run out of space. So I think that's very important. The palette is beautiful. If I see this, what I notice is that everything on the photograph is very harmonious. It's all sort of like tones of beige and browns, and I absolutely love that. And then there is the pop, the accent color, the turquoise, the blue, completely different temperature. So if you ask me, I feel like this could be the color direction. Make everything super harmonious and analogous in color with beiges and browns, and then I'm sure you're going to do that later because there's so little time when we paint. Then I would just focus on that pop, that accent color on the mask, and in that sense, yeah, more second notes. I would say compositionally great. I think the sketch looks great also. I think the sketch looks great. And then I would say now it's a matter of adding values. Go on to second notes, because I noticed that there's this beautiful darker note outside of the face that defines the silhouette. So I would start shaping up the face from the outside with darker notes. I like the pyramid-like sort of like shape of the hair. So it's something really nice. And I feel like this is very much parallel. It just depends on what you want to do with it, because obviously the format of the painting is different than the format of the photo. And maybe on the photo that made more sense and maybe not here. But there's something really cool about that shape, you know, and the fact that it's not so parallel. What happens with parallel lines is that they get really picked up by the edges, and then it becomes very repetitive. We have the edge, we have the parallel line or the vertical line, and then we repeat it again. So I like to break things up by creating the softness or things that are more diagonal, so it doesn't get co-opted with, or yeah, co-opted, can I say that? I don't know, with the edges of the painting. So consider that as well, but it's looking great. It's a great stage, Darlene.
I felt I used way too much Gamsol this time, so I kind of had to stop because things were starting to drip. So I had to like, I'm waiting now because
okay.
The glasses, I almost regret using the glasses because it kept me from working on the eyes.
No, I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's going to help you with working less on the eyes. Actually, you won't have to do as much detail, and it's something really cool.
I'm not wearing contact lenses when I'm staying home, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I would just that I would keep. There's something really charming and very whimsical about wearing the glasses. I think conceptually I like it a lot. So
I'm not quite sure if I understood what you meant about the parallel lines. I'm sorry.
So I don't know if you see the pointer, but do you see the pointer on my screen?
Yes.
This kind of like follows a very similar direction than the edge of the painting.
Okay.
So those two lines, because they follow the same direction, they start reinforcing themselves or getting too strong. And I just feel like it may be too much.
Okay.
So I like to break things up so it doesn't conform too much with the edges, because the edges are so strong that they almost feel like magnetized and they condition the rest of the lines. So if we put lines that are too similar to the edges, I feel that it creates a different kind of energy. So breaking it up for me would mean sort of like softening the cascading descent of the hair. So it just becomes less parallel. I don't know if that's
I understand now. Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Give it a try. It's totally personal. So it doesn't mean like you should do it, but I just feel like here, for example, there's something nice about, there's compositionally in the photo, there's something nice, and I'll explain it right now. The fact that this is kind of like pyramid-like, and then you have the mask that works the opposite way. So there's something about this contraposition of both the softened cascading lines and then upward cocoon, I guess, lines that work for me. But here, it kind of like feels very flat. You know, you don't have that contraposition.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. That makes my day. Thanks.
Oh. And thanks to all of you who, I want to acknowledge the fact that this takes courage. I understand that, you know, seeing a picture of ourselves, number one, it's always like daunting and not really pleasing. And on top of it, we upload a painting that's not fully formed. So I wanted to acknowledge the fact that you guys are doing it. I know that this is not easy. So anyhow, I don't know what happened here. Did I just draw something? Oh, never mind. Lois, yeah, that's amazing. Fantastic. This is just like, looks great. Good example, or yeah, it's a good example of how likeness, it's not the be all end all in the process, and simplification, abstraction, distortion, it makes things more beautiful and more interesting. I love the fact that the face is much smaller, and then you brought in much more space. So I think intentionally or unintentionally, it's not just about the face, it's about the background. So
yeah, I think that was very intentional, because I was took a lot of selfies this morning. It's embarrassing. I was asking my 13-year-old daughter like how to take a selfie, how you know, the way they do it, like with the 2 fingers up and the lips pouted, and I kind of wanted to make a joke of it, like sexy selfie or something. And I just was getting so pissed off. I'm so frustrated. I'm so mad that LA has let down its guard and that we're back where we started. And so I felt like I just needed to get outside and show I'm wearing my mask outside, you know, and just wanted that feeling. I wanted to express a feeling, and I really appreciate what you said earlier about, you know, getting rid of that likeness. For people to like your painting, it has to be a likeness, you know, and I think that's been with me since I was getting accolades in my high school art class. Like if you painted something that looked realistic or good, you were important, you know?
right, yeah.
And
yeah,
so I'm always struggling with the abstract and the realistic, and I want to meld the two together so much. So I tried to really stay back from this portrait and try and express more than my feelings, more than my actual what the picture was.
Beautiful. Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah, I think this is a very strong stage. I mean, this painting can stand on its own the way it is right now. It's closer to being more finished than it is to being in progress, just because I like the way you built the background. And then I like the distinct temperature or the change in temperature on the skin of your face. And I love that you brought greens also on your skin. Something really cool about not just the face, but the body and the torso, and the fact that it has green also, because we know we compartmentalize too much when we paint. We just paint by numbers too much. So it's good to spill the color and just bring it in different areas. And this, to me, it's possibly the most sophisticated part of the painting in that sense, because it's unpredictable and it works, and it just brings the skin on the background. The slight green on the hair also, for me, works really well. So there's something about the harmony that you brought to different parts that I think it works. I think it works. So
Thank you. I learned a lot from you, from the red, yellow, blue, whereas yellow ochre can be yellow, you know, and I kind of actually took my palette from last week that was not dried yet, and I just added, like, I took all the greens I had, I mixed them in together into a green with the Payne's gray, and mixed all the yellows I had, and I mixed all the reds I had, and I said, I'm just going to simplify it and add the white and just go with that. And it worked. Yeah, I really like that your concept of this, the neutral, primaries.
right. Yeah, like the neutral version of the primer. Yeah.
Yeah, you can still do so much with yellow,
Yeah.
red, and blue. You don't need to have every aspect of red, like
Right.
I've had. And I'm going off of, I have so much paint people have given me and all this stuff, so I'm trying to get through that before I buy new stuff. So
Right. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
Simple is better sometimes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you really help simplify things. And again, another amazing session with Julio.
Oh, no,
Thank
I was
you.
really excited about this because it's a different challenge, and we get to concentrate on eyes. So this looks really
Wait,
great.
one more thing before I go. So my mask, I haven't detailed the mask, but I really want to, is because I'm wearing the bandana in one of the self-portraits, and then I'm sewing the bandana into a mask. And then now I'm wearing the mask in this series of quarantine portraits that we're doing. So I think they're all going to relate in quite an amazing way. So I really wanted to make sure I was wearing that mask as we are in how many days have we been at this, guys?
We've been 15 weeks.
So 15, the
15 weeks.
15th week, that bandana has been many,
I know.
had many uses.
Good. It's good to have like that correlation between, so it ties up the rest of the
And we're
portraits.
here every Friday. How it's every Friday, every other day, I don't understand, but I am here with you every Friday.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you so much for being here. That's all I
Yeah,
have to say.
no. Thank you. This is amazing. And all the work we do is inspiring others, and I think that's also very satisfying. So it's not just
I'm
only
so inspired by you guys, by everyone painting. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everybody, really putting their feet down and grounding themselves and committing.
No, it's good to find strength in community, and I feel like even though we're not together, doing this gives us the strength to continue creating, because otherwise it's just everyone's different, obviously, but we have less responsibilities, or at least it looks like we have less responsibilities, and then we have more time that we can fill up with other stuff, and then all of a sudden here we are looking or watching the news, and then we get completely saturated. So this is good to break that up and make sure that we don't go insane.
I know, 100%. Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you, Lois. Thank you. Great job. Yeah, I can't wait for you to go. Mika, how are you? Nice to meet you. This is amazing. Thank you. I don't know how you found us, but we're so happy that you did. And you're so brave and you're so wonderful. Thanks for being here. And I know that you've received some of the emails, but I wanted to commend you for joining us. This looks absolutely amazing. I love the fact, again, that you chose monochromatic. I think that is really smart and brilliant, and you got the color out of the way. So in that sense, I think it was the right decision. And I love also the fact that you brought the narrative or the different layer of really bringing the attention, not to the face, but to the actual mask, because it's the only thing that carries color. So I think this is brilliant in that sense. Compositionally, you did a great job. You left some space on the top, and it's not something that that I point that it's right or wrong, but I just feel like sometimes we overlook the fact that we have the possibility of creating room so people have a nicer visual experience. But it doesn't mean like that's the right way to go. Whatever we decide, if we stand behind that decision, then no one can argue against it. So compositionally, it looks great. I love the drawing. I love the expression. I think this is fantastic. And in the sense, I would say, in the sense of like pointers that I would just bring up. So I love the gorgeous sheen on your hair. There's something very sculpture-like on it. So I would say if you wanted to continue working on it, I think that would definitely shape up or give more dimension to the hair, and it would feel sort of like more integrated with the rest of the painting. So it's something that I would do. In regards of the shape, there's something that I feel here, it's a little bit more on the triangular shape, because there's something really nice about the round top and then how it kind of like cascades. And I feel like this feels very, very arched and regular. So if anything, I would probably shave from the sides and kind of like soften that that super regular arch and make it a little bit kind of like softer on the edges. I feel like that could really help the hair between the highlights and the shape, could really integrate it with the rest of the face. And maybe there's something really cool about the fact that you have contrast between the darker side of the or sheen of the hair and the background. Something to consider, because this is so strong right now that it really comes forward. So whether you want to incorporate it or not, but consider giving a little bit of value on the background, because what's going to do is it's going to push the background all the way to the back, and then it's going to create more attention to the face. Again, these are subjective opinions, so they don't mean like they're right or wrong. So I love the mask. I love the fact that, you know, it's like more open. There's something really cool about the contrast on the fabric. And I think that you tried it, but you probably had like a little bit more challenging time bringing lighter notes. So I would say wait a little bit. A day does it. You can actually start putting like lighter paint or paint on top of it, and it has coverage. But I would enhance that contrast, because there's something that I think that gets a little bit lost, and it's so cool, the wrinkles of the fabric. So maybe lighter, much lighter, more pastel-like notes on the lighter parts of the fabric. I think that would be great. I feel like, consider it. There's something really cool about the expression of the eyes that I love, but I feel like the neck feels like really narrow. So I would say consider just kind of like widening a tad. So there's a little bit more correlation between the size of the head above the mask and then the size of the neck below the mask. I like the way it looks right now, but I feel like, you know, that's something that I would possibly try to correlate a little bit more in that sense. And in the sense of the values on the face, I would consider as well to bring a little bit of like darker value, a little bit on the edges between the hair and the forehead. Because right now it feels really like uniform and flat, but that would create a sense of the face being recessed and the hair coming forward. I think it would help a lot. I don't know. If you're there, I hope that was good feedback.
Yeah. For the hair, I kept having troubles trying to get the highlights and then having it look just more and more flat with just different streaks of white in it. So I had trouble trying to make it look, like you said, shiny and highlighted. And then at a certain point, it just got all mixed up together and I focused on something else. But yeah.
That happens. I would say for me, what helps me is if I'm super gentle with the stroke, because if I'm super gentle, I'm able to, I put a little bit more paint on the brush and then I barely touch the paper and then, or the surface. And that does it. It just leaves the paint right on top and I don't blend it back, because the minute I touch it, then it gets blended with the painting underneath. So if you want to give it a try and then do something much lighter with more paint and then do one stroke and it's going to stay right on top. I would say, I mean, I love the painting the way it is. I would love if you could, and if you had time, to add a little bit more work on it, because you could take it to the next level very easily and with a very short period of time.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to work on it more. So thank you.
How did you find us? Did you?
I don't know. My mom did somehow. She's
really?
been, we live in LA and she's been looking for online art classes. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. This is exciting. I
Thank
hope you had a
you.
good time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So I'm just gonna that's it. I'm gonna do a refresh. Any more images? We have 10 minutes. That's awesome.
Yeah, there should be, Susan should be in there. Julie
Julie.
should be in there. Yep. We won't forget you, Julie.
Oh yeah, so many. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, I didn't have time to organize them. Dina, this is just amazing. I'm gonna look for the image, the actual photograph, but I love same thing as Mia did a little bit, incorporating another part of the body, I guess, or something very expressive. So I just love that. And, you know, it goes to the you kind of like elevated the narrative, saying, you know what, not only I'm wearing a mask and I stand behind wearing masks, but I'm approving I'm approving it, and it's good. So in that sense, I love this image a lot because it reinforces what we're trying to do. Because really, what we're trying to do, yes, this is a portrait assignment, but you all know that we're trying to do is be on the right side of history, damn it. I can't believe we have to do this. It reminds me of the signs that I see sometimes of people carrying signs that says, "I can't believe that I'm still protesting against something."
Yeah.
So this is kind of like similar in that sense, you know, that we have to do this to show that we stand behind wearing masks. Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is. I mean, something so simple and obvious. It's a negligence of people that think that they don't have to, but those are the same people, if they do get sick, they want others to put themselves in harm's way at the hospital for them when they were negligent in trying to prevent getting sick in the first place.
Right. Yeah, no, this is at the very beginning of the pandemic, I guess, with the lockdown, when we saw the images, we didn't want to bring that as a theme because we thought it was purely aesthetic. So it was not part of the conversation in regards of like subject matters to use. But here we are today, and this past week that this has been on the news all the time. So this is now an issue and a subject for a painting. So anyhow, so going back to your painting, let me see if I can find the photo. And yeah, it was earlier. Yeah, I think so. Okay, good. Yeah, so I think we can just work with values a little bit more. What I'm going to do, Dina, just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to put this on the screen, and then I'm going to pause, and I'm going to rearrange the images because we have a little bit of time. So, and this would be the final refresh, by the way. So if you uploaded anything, we'll give you the scoop. And I'm going to put Julie's, and I'm going to put Susan's, and then I think we're good. And now I'm just going to go back to, you. Yeah, so basically what I would say, well, no, you have enough value distinction. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. If anything, maybe on the hands, the back of the palm of the hand, it's a little bit darker. So if you brought a slightly darker value, you would actually feature the illusion of this knuckle line breaking two different surfaces.
Right. So I'm going to work on that, and then I was going to try, I have to work on the mask, and I think the eye on the left needs to go down just a bit. Yeah, it's angled. So, and what's really good is when you do take a picture of it, because when you're looking at it, you're painting it, and it looks okay, but then it really helps when I take a picture of it and then look at it in photos, and then it's like I can see things that I didn't see before.
Right. And you know why? Because for one, we shrink the image so much that now we are able to find better relationships, because when we're actually looking at the painting, our eye goes sort of like at different positions, at different places. But when it's like it's much smaller, then we can see the overall. It's the same effect as stepping back
Right.
from our painting.
Right. Or squinting sometimes, right? It's
Squinting.
better. Yeah. Yeah.
And also being behind the screen, it kind of like gives us the opportunity to unify the surface, I guess. So then we
I
can
think
actually
maybe we could be more objective too.
Yeah.
Consciously, because when you're painting it and you're so trying to be so careful that you don't mess it up.
Right.
And then this way, when you take a picture of it in stages, it's kind of good because you're looking at it as if it's not yours, so you can see things and feel okay about saying, oh, well, maybe that's a little off. Where when you're doing it, when you're painting it, you feel, well, what's wrong with me? How come I didn't get this right in the first place? So
yeah, no, it helps. Sometimes if it's good to get feedback, but when we don't have feedback, the best feedback would be take a picture and look at the picture.
Right. Yeah. Well, that helps me. Thank you.
I can wait. Yeah, I can wait. I would say to work on those notes or those points, and then it's very strong already. So I can wait.
Thanks.
Good job. Yeah. And I am gonna go to Julie. Yay. Wow, this looks amazing. Come on, I like the angle. I love the tree and the cypress and the palm tree. I think that's great. Talk about like unpredictable and different. I think that's a good idea. The lower point of view, the backlight, lots of things going on, Julie, in that sense. So I think I know that you removed, I think that's good that you brought in this, but there's something really cool about the depth of field being not focused on the background. I would say first thing, I would soften the palm tree because it's coming a little bit too forward because it's so sharp. And there's something so nice about having this as a background, as a backdrop of your selfie, that here it just competes too much with the face, I think.
I agree. I didn't do anything with the background to the last 30 seconds. So, it was just too complicated. But yes, I agree. And I was going to put in the other one too,
No, I mean, that's kind of like a super, kind of like tiny detail. Compositionally, I feel like that's great. It's sort of like really, really close to the edge. That, I mean, it's okay, but make sure that it's not super close. And the thing is that it's not a problem. It's not an issue at all. But it's the fact that, you have space visually to go around it. And then when you leave very little, you create an interruption. So the viewer is not aware of these things. No one will know of this. Compositionally, this looks great because you incorporated the vertical tilt and then the vertical of the palm tree as a tongue-in-cheek almost. And then not only that, but you're looking at that palm tree. So there's something really playful and interesting that's going on. But, this is almost in the subconscious level, the fact that this is so close. And I would just clean it up a little bit on top so it looks more detached. So at least you have, you space it up a little bit more. So I would just make it even lighter. There's something really cool. I mean, it's really intense. I mean, if you could, yeah, I know you did. It's like some of the lighter edges, because there's something very interesting about the fuzzy hair getting lit by the sun behind it, and it creates this kind of like line. So I would try to enhance that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I zoomed in closer than I was on the photo, and it was actually very hard photo to work with because I couldn't really see my eyes. And I hate it because it doesn't look like me at all, the painting. I think that the face is too squat. It needs to be longer. I think I might just bring down the whole mask a little deeper. But I'm sorry, my internet connection is coming and going. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit, but yeah, it's okay. No, yeah, we can hear you, so no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to work on it some more, but yeah, I think I maybe came in too close in the painting part. It was hard.
Yeah, it's not easy, but you know, I think in that sense, I think you've done a lot because you worked on a lot of parts of the painting. Because I mean, I'm surprised that you did so much. You know, not only the eyes, but also the neck and the hair. It looks fantastic. I mean, if you want to tweak, if you want to tweak it, but it just looks great. I like the top, and I like the pattern on the mask, and I like the paisley and the difference between the right and the left. Um, I would just do a few touch-ups, but if you
So
are intending on working on it, maybe a few touches, but it looks fantastic, and it does look like you in that sense. Maybe working on the hair um, a little bit more
it,
before touching the eyes.
yeah, the hair. So the backlight just okay. So the backlight, I should just use a white and maybe a more solid background color would bring
Yeah,
out the
white and ecru. I would say white and ecru. I
background.
mean, I'm going to say something crazy, but I think you should bring the sun in your painting. I think you should
Yeah.
bring the sun in your painting if you could somehow, because there's something so cool about the fact that you have this spotlight and then it just creates a halo. If you bring the sun, this will make more sense, the backlight.
Mhm.
I think that it
Okay.
also give you the opportunity of opening up a little bit more space here so it feels airier or lighter. Because right now it's really deep everywhere. So because
Mhm.
of the composition, if you open up that space with light, it may just create a little bit of a counterbalance to the edge of the head. I think it could help you. And it's an easy fix if you think that it doesn't help you a lot, but I would just sponge it up or bring that spotlight. I don't know if you could, but even if it's not in the right spot, you could do it like above, because right here it's on the edge. You could do it on the
Mhm.
top, or you could do it
Okay.
on this side right here, even on the other side of the palm tree. It doesn't have to be in between the hair, because that would be kind of like pushing it too much. But bringing it like on this side, give it a try, I think.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie. Yeah. And then, yeah, Susan, oh, it's nice to see you back. I mean, you sold a painting, right? I just
Look,
got
Fred, look, Fred.
And yeah, was that successful?
Yes, that
Your
was
friend got it, right? Yes.
super fun. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yes. Actually, yeah. Okay, never mind. I'm just, my brain doesn't work sometimes, but yeah, I'm glad that worked out. This is gorgeous and beautiful, and you did so much, and I love that you were able to actually add so many layers. So I'm not gonna look at the image yet. I just look at compositionally. I just love how things fall within the format. Just talking about the balance, enough space. I like the darkness of the green. It just makes the face come forward a lot more, and at the same time pushes the background. So you create a lot of space between you and the background. The shoulders, the neckline, I just think like it works really beautifully. So compositionally, to me, it works a lot. And things or pointers that I would bring up. I have a tendency, because I love doing that. I love doing the eyes much larger than they actually look like. There's something that it's intentional, and I like it, because we have a tendency of making the eyes a little bit smaller. So I like the eyes being larger. I wouldn't touch anything about them. I feel like they're a little bit too close in that sense. The interpupillar distance may be a tad too close, because
Right.
I would, if you wanted to work on it, you don't have to remove anything or shift anything away, but I would probably work on the tear duct area, because if you bring a little bit of lightness there, even if you lifted up the darker value there, it would just naturally, without changing any lines or edges, it would naturally create a little bit more space, because you have the eye, you have the lines of the eyes, and then you have the darker shadow between both sides of the beginning of the nose. So consider it. it doesn't become a spotlight for me, or it doesn't take away from the rest of the painting, because I think this comes very balanced. I love how all the elements of the painting are very unapologetic in their expression. There's nothing that feels weak or not balanced. But I mean, if you wanted to give that touch up, I think that would kind of like soften up. Let me see if I can. Yeah, a little bit like softer shadow between both edges. I would also say that I would probably soften the darkness of the eyebrows. I feel like they're very strong and graphic. And I know that that's kind of like complicated, because once we apply the darker area, it feels really hard to soften it. But there's something really harmonious about the softer shadow. I think there's also a different quality on the eyebrow that's much denser or harder on the head, and then it gets softer on the tail. So those tiny little tweaks can help the face become also more cylindric looking. Because right now, because you have the same strength of value across the eyebrow, it becomes kind of like flattened.
Right.
So
That's
yeah,
great.
I would say those two things, just because the eyes are the protagonists here. And the last note that I would bring, there is something really nice and beautiful about the softness between the skin on the forehead and then the growth of the hair. And I feel like on the painting, there's it's very, very much, it's very hard. So I would kind of like find a way to soften that area. I feel like, you know, maybe just a little bit of blush or a little bit of blending, it would soften that area and just create less of a graphic mark.
Agreed. Okay. Yeah,
What do you
great.
think?
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm excited. I love your previous painting. When I saw that you signed up, I was elated and thrilled. And thank you so
I
much.
would sign up every Friday if I didn't have work, let me tell you.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, we're debating because Jen and I have been talking about maybe doing a session during the weekend, because we have things. Let me just kind of like go back to the, yeah. So yeah, we have things, and it would be interesting to find out if you tell us. But we have the webinars. Basically, after we make them, we record them, and then we have them on YouTube and on private. So and then we share the link, and people do it. And some people do; they replay them. But I feel like nothing feels like actually doing it at the same time. It's not the same energy. It's simply not the same. And then we have this interaction. So we were thinking that maybe we could just do something live during the weekend or a different time, because I feel like some people would join us. So I'm just saying this because taking the opportunity that you say that you had to work, and more people are going back to work now, and it's much harder to find time during the week. So maybe it's something that we would consider. I don't know.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks to all of you. Any notes, I'm just going to bring basically all the videos and stuff, and then remove my spotlight. Yeah. So we can just see everyone. So yeah, so hi Jen.
Hi. I figured why not?
Hello. Yeah, well, this was awesome and fantastic, and I loved it. And Dina, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. Yay, Mika, how are you?
Yay.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know it takes time, and it's not easy, and it's frustrating and stuff, but we live for this, and we want to just thank you, because it's what Lois said, it's community that gives us the inspiration to do it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Any comments, Jen? Any notes?
Just people praising other people's art, so that's always good.
Yeah.
Lots of that.
So thanks for
to
the
support.
Egyptian images. Those are awesome. And then
Thank
what we're gonna do on Tuesday, if you can, if you have time, we kind of like get together again. So and mostly what we'll do is talk about things that came up during the session that I think could be helpful. So we'll build on the instruction, and then if you guys continue working and you want to upload the work, we can just give you more feedback, but you don't have to. So we kind of like leave it separated. So we give a few days if anyone wants to continue working, and then on Tuesday we can kind of like talk more about it. But the Tuesday session, it's 1 hour long, and we kind of like go back to things that we talked about that we want to expand, and then more feedback. And so hopefully
And
we'll
your
see
Thursday video, that's fun.
the Thursday video.
Super
No, it's good.
fun.
It's so inspiring. It really helps because composition is so important, and what we're trying to say in our paintings, we're, you know, what we're doing. So being able to see that, I wasn't able to join on Thursday, but I was able to replay it and get inspired from it, and help me
Right.
really come up with my composition before we
Good.
started.
Awesome. Yeah, share these paintings if you can. Share them far and wide. People need to see this work. This is a I can't believe we're saying this. It's
Look
a
at us.
political statement. Can
We
you
are.
believe this crap? But here we are. So
We need like a paintbrush in a fist or something,
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
manifesto.
Over our mask.
Right. Yeah.
Their mask, what we're doing.
Yeah.
No, it gives us some time to digest everything that happened the whole week. Like every week is ridiculous and insane, and we're going all these different directions, and yet still trying to manage our homes. And then Friday we just are able to just let it out in this strange portrait of whatever, and it's wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks again. And yeah, so we'll just, if you have any questions, you can just send us notes. You can also add your questions on the folders, I mean, on the Google folder. So you don't even have to share an image. You can just ask us anything. We get a notification. If you download the app, you get notifications every time someone uploads. And yeah, so on that note, thanks for your patience.
Thanks, guys.
And have the best
Great
weekend.
paintings, everyone. I love your paintings. I love
Yeah, good
everyone's
job,
paintings.
as always.
work.
As
everybody.
always.
So good.
And we'll see you Tuesday. So bye, guys.
Happy
Thank
4th, everyone.
you.
I know.
Oh, yeah,
happy
right.
4th.
Fourth.
Yes.
Whatever.